Hello, this is Jean, and for the next half hour, I'll be reading articles from Buffalo Rising, the December 2025 issue on Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Big deal. Bank of America building going residential. December 18, 2025 by Buffalo Rising. Planners agree that increasing the number of people living downtown is key to creating a 24/7 neighborhood, especially post-COVID, in an office space demand and the number of workers downtown has slumped. Simonelli Real Estate is heeding that advice and recognizing the downtown office space market is in flux by proposing to convert nearly all of the Bank of America building at 560 Main Street, 10 Fountain Plaza, to approximately 160 apartments. Opened in 1982, the structure was built for the Liberty National Bank, which later changed its name to North Star Bank. The 10-story building has 189,000 square feet of space, with approximately 86,000 square feet currently vacant. Simonelli is proposing to convert all but the 17,900 square foot top floor to residential use. Existing office tenants would be relocated. While downtown has seen a number of older structures such as schools, police stations, warehouses, and Class B and Class C office buildings converted to residential use, the rehab of the comparatively new Bank of America building is an outlier but welcome. Providing new opportunities for people to be downtown both day and night helps create a sense of place and provides a community base for shops and restaurants. The conversion of the property is expected to be partially funded through historic preservation tax credits. The building is being listed on the New York State and National Register of Historic Places. Conceived by Mark Mendel of Cannon Design and constructed in the early 1980s, the North Star building is architecturally significant for its pioneering design in the realm of energy efficiency and the use of an innovative steel framing method. It's a unique opportunity to honor the building's innovative past while considering its future in an increasingly more vibrant downtown Buffalo, said Kyle Simonelli, president of Simonelli Real Estate Corporation. The historic designation creates opportunity for the strategically located building to be revitalized to become a catalyst in transforming downtown from a traditional 9-to-5 central business district currently focused on corporate offices into a central connectivity district that emphasizes downtown as a place for socializing, collaborating, and experiencing culture. At least 160 units, the project would be one of the largest residential developments that have been completed in the last 10 years in or close to downtown. Trico is downtown's largest, with 242 units, followed by the Grid at 1198 Main Street, with 201 Ellicott, with 201 units, and Silo City with 168. Marine Drive's first phase with 252 units and the Perry Project with 405 units are under construction. Annunciation Greek Orthodox Church follows lead of Green Patriarch with new rooftop solar array. Aligning with the environmental goals of world leader Archbishop Bartholomew, also known as the Green Patriarch, the Annunciation Greek Orthodox Church has installed a new solar array on its rooftop. In partnership with Buffalo Solar, the church set out to reduce electricity costs, lower carbon emissions, and serve as a model of clean energy adoption for community organizations across Western New York. This is definitely a case of leading by example by demonstrating to other like-minded organizations that solar power should be a consideration when looking at long-term energy-saving goals. In the case of the Annunciation Greek Orthodox Church, the project included 65.5 kilowatts DC with 136 solar panels covering 63% of the parish's electricity costs, equating to approximately $10,000 saving annually, according to the orchestrators. The break-even point is 8.5 years into the 25-year estimated lifespan of the project, although that is considered a safe estimate. The solar array should power the church well past that point. We are so excited to see this long dream for project come to fruition, stated Father Paul Pestisas, parish priest. We know that through this solar project, we will not only help to protect our environment, but to give courage to other churches and communities to be part of the good stewardship of the earth that God has entrusted to all of us. Clean energy is a gift from God, and through that gift, we can gift a healthier environment to our children, our neighbors, and our community. The Annunciation Greek Orthodox Church is located at 146 West Utica Street. $50,000 awarded through an ASI's Give for Greatness grants. Arts Services Incorporated, ASI, has awarded 25 Give for Greatness grants totaling $50,000 in capacity building support to small and micro nonprofit arts and cultural organizations across Western New York. The 2025 recipients represent a wide range of artistic disciplines and community-centered missions helping to preserve, strengthen, and expand access to the arts throughout the region. Each $2,000 Give for Greatness grant is designed to help organizations invest in the internal tools and systems that support long-term sustainability. Eligible uses include strategic planning, board and staff training, technology upgrades, consultant support, and other capacity-building activities that make day-to-day operations more effective. This year's applicant pool reflected both the depth and diversity of Western New York's arts ecosystem. A review panel of regional arts and cultural leaders evaluated more than 70 applications, facing the difficult task of selecting 25 organizations to receive funding. Small and micro nonprofits are the backbone of our region's creative ecosystem, said ASI Executive Director Jen Swan Kilpatrick. Representing 76% of the organizations we serve, they play a vital role in community building and cultural representation. Capacity building investments like Give for Greatness help these organizations strengthen their internal operations so they can continue to grow their impact and remain responsive to the communities they serve. The 25 Give for Greatness grant recipients are Ade Jemba Fola, African American Veterans Arts and Culture Corp., Allentown Association, American Legion Band of the Tonawondas, American Scandinavian Heritage Foundation, Art Resource, Buffalo and Brandy, Buffalo Opera Unlimited, Buffalo Philharmonic Chorus, Camerata Chamber Orchestra, Center for Exploratory and Perceptual Arts, SEPA, Dream Space Center, El Museo, Evangola State Theater, Gardens Buffalo Niagara, Hall Walls Contemporary Arts Center, Lock City Glee Club, Newstead Historical Society, Nusantara Arts, Opera Lights, Polish Arts Club of Buffalo, Starring Buffalo, the Fountain Arts Center, the Springville Center for the Arts, and Unique Theater Company. Recipient Spotlight, Hall Walls Contemporary Arts Center, Buffalo, New York. Capacity building expenses like computers and shared digital infrastructure may seem small, but for artist-run organizations operating on tight budgets, these are often the costs that get deferred, and the burden frequently falls on staff. Support from the Give for Greatness grant allowed Hall Walls to upgrade essential technology, provide reliable computers for staff and interns, and build a shared online workspace that strengthens communication and coordination across our team. These investments have an immediate, impactful impact on how we work day to day and will support our sustainability and growth well into the future. At Hall Walls, Give for Greatness funding is supporting the implementation of recommendations developed through a nonprofit consulting process focused on succession planning and smoother transitions into new and evolving staff roles. By investing in shared digital infrastructure and updated technology, Hall Walls is strengthening internal systems that support clearer communication more effective collaboration, and long-term organizational stability. Give for Greatness overview. Since 2024, the Give for Greatness program has provided over $360,000 in funding to support to 149 small and micro arts and cultural nonprofits across Western New York, with a continued focus on reaching organizations that are deeply rooted in their communities and often operate with limited resources. The 2025 Give for Greatness grants are made possible through the generous support of Lawyers for the Arts and the Marilyn and Grow McTaggart Reveal Fund at the Community Foundation for Greater Buffalo. Arts Services, Inc. is proud to invest in the organizations that serve a vital local touchpoints to the arts and culture that define our region. Construction Watch, Plater Gardens. Plater Gardens, an affordable housing project in the Broadway-Fillmore neighborhood, is nearing completion. A 2-block stretch of Plater Street between Broadway and Paderewski Drive has seen 65 housing units constructed on 35 previously vacant parcels. All of the units are affordable housing restricted to households with income below 60% of the area median income. The project includes low-maintenance landscaping, building-mounted photovoltaic lighting, and small off-street parking lot. CPX Unity Summit 2026. We're excited to bring back CPX Unity Summit for 2026, a half-day gathering for artists, creative professionals, and arts and culture workers from across Western New York. Join us for a morning focused on unity, collaboration, and creative growth, with opportunities to connect, learn, and share ideas that strengthen our region's creative community. Event details. The date is Wednesday, January 21st, 2026, from 8:30 to 12:30 p.m. The location is the Tri-Main Center, 2495 Main Street, in Buffalo, New York, and the tickets are a sliding scale pricing available. The summit will feature an inspiring keynote, breakout sessions on funding, program development, and more dedicated working time, and a closing session on advocacy. Whether you're an independent artist, nonprofit leader, or cultural worker, the Unity Summit is designed to equip you with tools, connections, and inspiration for the year ahead. Big news for Allentown and a hard-earned victory. Fillmore District Council member Mitch Nowakowski has announced that the precarious 2 St. Louis Place is finally in the right hands. The hands of the city, that is. The notoriously disruptive building has been a constant headache for Allentown, not only because of its state of disrepair, but because of the presence of vagrants and squatters. After being put up on the market back in May, the city has finally had enough and decided it was time to take action. Around that same time, Senator Sean Ryan was calling for the city of Buffalo to take action on an abandoned building like 2 St. Louis Place. Now action is underway. After years of neglect, violence, and court actions, the city of Buffalo has officially taken control of the long vacant building at 2 St. Louis Place. This outcome is the result of sustained pressure through the city, housing court, and persistence from neighbors who refuse to accept blight as the status quo. This marks a major turning point. After the property was officially declared abandoned, and the city now holding the deed, we have established a new tool for the city to use to hold absentee owners accountable. We will now work towards stabilizing the site and turning it over to productive use. I can't wait for the day when folks call this place their home. From the bottom of my heart, thank you to the residents, advocates, preservationists, and public servants who work so hard on this solution. This is what accountability looks like. And it's proof that when we stay engaged together, progress does happen. Bummer. AMC to leave Market Arcade Complex. AMC Theaters is ending its lease at the Market Arcade Complex in the Theater District. AMC had run the 8-screen movie theater since 2018. The company cited slumping ticket sales for its decision to end its lease agreement with Benchmark Group, according to the news. Benchmark Group's Market Arcade Theater, LLC, purchased the shuttered complex from the Buffalo Urban Renewal Agency in February of 2016 for $250,000. Benchmark was selected over competing proposals by Rocco Termini and Sinatra & Company Realty in late 2014. Benchmark oversaw a $9 million renovation of the complex, and the AM Theaters was signed to run it. The 8 screens were updated to digital format for first-run movies, luxury seating, and more. The work also included upgrades to theater amenities, office space, and theater marquees. The Market Arcade Cinema Complex consists of 3 buildings on Main and Washington Streets. The cinemas at 639 Main Street included 8 auditoriums with 1,842 seats in 33,000 square feet of space. The not-for-profit Market Arcade Film and Arts Center had a month-to-month lease on the complex and had a management agreement with Dipson Theaters until the complex closed in 2014. Benchmark has not decided what direction it will go with the space, according to the news. The fate of Delaware Park and Humboldt Parkway are in the New York State Department of Transportation's hands. Depending on the outcome, Buffalo could become a UNESCO World Heritage Site. By Daniel Kadzow. Background and significance. As pointed out in an enjoyable Atlas Obscura episode and elsewhere, the concept of a parkway was invented right here in Buffalo. What's missing, however, is the broader historical archaeological setting of this invention. Our species evolved into its current form roughly 200,000 years ago, and for most of the time since, we did just great. With no cities, corporations, governments, or organized militaries, we spread across the entire planet from tropics to tundra with only Stone Age technology. No other species anywhere near our position on the food web accomplished anything close to that in the entire history of the planet. It wasn't until the Neolithic, New Stone Age revolution, advent of agriculture, about 10,000 years ago, that we began using our ancient technologies and knowledge to adopt more intensive forms of horticulture and establish long-term settlements. Why they did that when things were going so well for so long is debatable. But a team of researchers, surprisingly not led by Homer Simpson, think the reason our ancestors finally settled down might have been to make beer. I gotta say that. The early cities, typically small and scattered, with what looks like fits and bursts in the long view of prehistory, they grew and fell apart. Our ability to produce more than we needed to survive allowed some of us to specialize in things like arts, crafts, and religion, which frequently resulted in larger cities. But it wasn't until the Industrial Revolution, circa 1750 to 1850, that cities really began to explode. When that was happening, no one knew when or if that growth would ever stop. A local history book, for example, reported a prediction that the cities of Buffalo and Rochester would eventually merge into one giant metropolis. Before that era, no one even imagined a preserved green space in a city because the countryside was so close. But as the cities expanded, a desire for parks was inspired by cemeteries, which were already popular recreation spots for people long evolved to appreciate a natural order. The world's first purposeful urban park was established in Birkenhead Park in Liverpool, England, an early global industrial powerhouse due to the nation's legacy of colonialism in 1847. Soon after, the residents of New York City realized the same need for an urban park. They used a contest to determine the park's design, which was won by Calvert Vaux and Frederick Law Olmsted. The resulting Central Park opened in 1858, and it was America's first public park. In the midst of a booming city, it offered a variety of environments like meadows, lakes, and forests that could be enjoyed while giving the illusion that park goers were not in a city at all. It was a democratic use of public space that was meant to be enjoyed by all city residents. Its popularity won an immediate invitation to build another, Brooklyn's Prospect Park, which opened in 1867. Buffalo was the third project Olmsted took on, but it became the world's first urban park system with interconnected pathways built between 1868 and the late 1890s. Olmsted went on to design a few more parks, but the landscape engineering firm he established with his family went on to design hundreds more. And they inspired thousands of parks and park systems across the nation and the world. They were all based on the designs and ideas that were established in New York City and perfected right here in Buffalo. In this broad arc of history that spans human development from nomad to modern civilization, we see that the very notion of urban parkland achieved its florescence right here in the Queen City of New York. That's very, very hard to overstate. Sadly, this florescence was short-lived. During the Roaring Twenties, the city's fat cats decided it was a good idea to bulldoze the graves of 300 War of 1812 soldiers in Delaware Park, the crown jewel of the park system, so that they could have a more convenient place to play golf. This destroyed the Olmsted principle of democratic access to the grand meadow in the park system. Then the Kensington and Scaghtwatta expressways were built in the late 1950s. This added further injury to Delaware Park and obliterated the largest parkway in the city. This did not happen in a vacuum. It was during the terminal stages of the Jim Crow era and at the cusp of the Civil Rights Movement. This was before the 1968 Fair Housing Act made redlining and other forms of institutional racial segregation illegal. Expressways were such an effective tool for segregationists. However, they were used to achieve their despicable goals for many years after the Fair Housing Act. Their construction was used to directly assault thriving non-white communities like those being built by Black and Jewish people Humboldt Parkway. They could also wall off populations with the expressways or just simply drain communities of commerce and job-providing traffic. Building on decades of redlining, racial steering, restrictive deed covenances, and blockbusting, these highways made Buffalo one of the most segregated cities in the nation. Some hope was cast upon our dismal situation when the City of Buffalo, New York State Department of Transportation, and Federal Highway Administration produced the 2005 expanded project proposal for Scaghtwatta Expressway. This community-supported plan included bike lanes, sidewalks, crosswalks, roundabouts, and a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit. By New York State's Department of Transportation's next public meeting in March of 2013, however, most of these features were removed, and the proposed speed limits were raised to 40 or 45 miles per hour. For unknown reasons, New York State Department of Transportation decided to push back hard against the community's desire for safe streets, multimodal transportational infrastructure, and a partially restored Delaware Park and reconnected communities. The first tactic was to drag their heels by staging community meetings years apart. I still want to know what happened to the New York State Department of Transportation between 2005 EPP and the 2013 public meeting. They also developed tactics to limit our voices. For example, at the end of each of the early meetings, community members were handed the microphone to voice their opinions. As our voices coalesced with unified and meaningful messaging, the applause for our voices grew louder. Rather than listening to our messages, New York State Department of Transportation decided to limit the amount of time we were allowed to speak. Then, without warning, our voices were reduced to note cards that they gathered, lumped into categories of their choosing, some of which were dismissed outright, and read, sometimes mockingly, back to us. We soon discovered they were also falsifying the public comments in the project scoping document, as well as the draft environmental impact statement. This included deleting and editing comments they didn't like, as well as amplifying those they did like. They also cycled through several regional directors and project managers, each attempting to put a new spin on the same old Jim Crow traffic planning strategies. While New York's Department of Transportation dragged their heels, in 2015, an extremely avoidable tragedy struck Delaware Park when a motorist left the expressway on a busy Saturday afternoon, killing a 3-year-old and severely injuring his 5-year-old sister. Governor Cuomo immediately ordered New York State Department of Transportation to lower the speed limit to 30 miles per hour. The Carmageddon, their word, invented to scare us, that the New York State Department of Transportation said their infallible traffic modeling proved it would happen if the speed limit was lowered to 30 miles per hour, didn't happen. Roughly half of the traffic just disappeared, no longer being lured out of the more direct paths by an unsafe speed limit. But the city's long-term complacency with New York State's Department of Transportation negligence did cost us $2.2 million in the resulting lawsuit. Then, due to New York Department of Transportation's failure to prevent that tragedy or to build a community consensus, aka force their preconceived plans on us, Governor Cuomo pulled the project from them and handed the planning over to the Greater Buffalo-Niagara Regional Transportation Council, GBNRTC. GBNRTC rebranded the project as Region Central because it is the center of Greater Buffalo metropolitan area, but also because it boasts many important social, historical, architectural, and cultural features and institutions, i.e. parks, museums, Forest Lawn Cemetery, War of 1812 graves, and battlefields, universities, Jacquota Creek and Niagara River, the zoo, Frank Lloyd Wright architecture, etc., which is to say, it's central to the city's culture and history as well as our collective future or success. GBNRT importantly expanded the project's study area from the footprint of the Jim Crow-era transportation infrastructure that New York State Department of Transportation built to include many of the pathways and modes of travel that are impacted by it. They used traffic data, which for the first time included cell phone tracking to discover New York State's Department of Transportation expressway infrastructure reduced connectivity for every mode of travel in the study area from cars to transit and especially pedestrian traffic. Further, GBNRTC asked our communities what we wanted. But they didn't bait us with stacked questions like, do you want more travel lanes and faster speed limits? Or do you want Carmageddon that will choke traffic all across New York? No, GBRNTC asked things like, do you want more or less green space? Do you want more or less types of travel options, e.g. bike, pedestrian, transit, etc.? And then they combined what the community wanted with what the existing landscape had to offer and produced the vision outlined in the Region Central Report in 2023. It was well received, and we had community consensus that was unparalleled since the original opposition to New York State's Department of Transportation destruction of our parks and pathways. And you know what? The plans weren't even that different from the 2005 EPP. So again, I really want to know what happened at the New York State Department of Transportation between that report and the 2013 public meeting. New York State Transportation's initial response to the Region Central report was crickets. The same old strategy of dragging their heels to wear us down. Then they tried to recapture the conversation with the unexpected announcement that what they wanted to spend $1 billion to restore Humboldt Parkway. Only they weren't being honest again. They only want to cap a small section of the Kensington Expressway to partially restore a small section of the Humboldt Parkway, which would act more to entrench the Jim Crow-era expressway than to mitigate the harms it was causing. And there was little or no mention of the exorbitant down-the-line maintenance costs for the tunnel. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from Buffalo Rising. Your reader has been Jean. Thank you for listening.
You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service with broadcast studios at 1199 Harlem Road in Cheektowaga.